Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
And welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Sonic Gaetano. Good morning.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Monday, the 1st of November,
a 2021. Here in the city. You know, I was waiting for the cold front. I got a little coolness yesterday, and today there is, it's not raining, it's just a slight drizzle.
Yesterday was the most beautiful weather that we've had in quite a while.
Yeah.
It was slightly windy, but very, very cool.
Yeah.
So even with the sun being out, it's not like, you know, you were burning up and that sort of stuff.
I wonder if it was enough to make Britney Spears happy.
Well, I don't know. What's interesting...
I haven't seen an update as yet.
What's interesting is that there's another celebrity who's in the country, who's developing here in Belize.
Who's that?
The name is James Prince, J. Prince, right?
Okay.
He's a music executive.
Okay.
And so he kind of responded to the complaints that were being made by Britney Spears, right?
Okay, I missed this
and
one.
His thing was, well, Belize is the next thing that's close to paradise. It's the closest to paradise, right? Which is completely contrasting perhaps what Britney put out there.
300,000 more followers for saying that.
Certainly.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the chatter on social media regarding the comments that were made at the start of the weekend, it's a very interesting thing because Belizeans, we kind of, you know,
we are protective.
Defend, definitely.
And I've always said that. There's this unwritten rule in this country that we can talk bad about our country, but no one else can. No one else can. But it was very interesting. But, you know, if I step back from it for a moment, though, I do hope that there was some kind of intervention that took place. While, you know, you may look at it and say, oh, why must we cater to one individual? I think in this world where everything is put out on social media and the reach can be very large, even beyond the millions of followers that she has.
One bad review.
Yeah.
That's
and
all it takes.
Any person who works in the tourism industry knows the impact of a bad review and trying to remedy it. So we haven't heard anything from BTB, if they've done anything, if they've checked in, if it's true, the things that she said, or if there is...
Well, all of that, Marlene, is in the context of her visiting and vacationing on a private island, right? So you would think that whoever owns the resort or the stay would have perhaps been better at accommodating and facilitating someone of her status.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it was unfortunate because it was a kind of like a immediate high and low in 24 hours. Everyone was happy she was in Belize, and then 24 hours later, very disappointed with her initial comment. So, you know, the weather was nice yesterday, so she was still here. Brittany, we hope you had a great time.
We sincerely do hope so.
But so that was one of the things I know that people were chattering about over the weekend, but we got some news to get into as well to discuss. So we're going to keep things moving for this morning. And in order to keep you motivated as you start off your Monday and the brand new week of a brand new month, we're going to move into our eye opener. And our eye opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. We can detect subtle changes in our own bodies by performing our own energy scan on a regular basis. As the living vehicles for our spirits, our bodies deserve loving attention and care. We can positively affect our health, prevent illness, and heal injuries by regularly focusing our mental and spiritual energy on the workings of our bodies. This can be done by performing a body scan on yourself. The body doesn't lie, and it has much wisdom to share with us. Any injuries or roadblocks that exist in our bodies are there so that we can learn from having them in our bodies. An existing injury can teach us to slow down or help us recognize that something is out of balance in our bodies. The more you scan your body, the better you will become at it. If you sense that something is not right in your body, you may want to visit a doctor and tell them about your experience. When you've finished your scan, don't forget to thank your wonderful, amazing body.
Perhaps this is the most important eye-opener we've read or we've shared with our viewers in quite a while.
Yeah.
In the context of COVID-19, I think about, one being in tune with his or her body and noticing certain changes, subtle in some instances and very, profound in other cases. But when I think about COVID-19 and I'm thinking, okay, how well do I know my body? You have to think, okay, if I detect the slightest change, perhaps something is happening in the context of contracting the virus. But beyond my thoughts on body and COVID-19, from a very early age, we are taught to be one with ourselves, our physical selves, right? So that you can wake up, for instance, knowing that something is wrong because your body sends you that message. All the signals are there, I feel achy or something just doesn't
feel off.
Right. Yeah. And that's how, in most cases, we're able to detect sickness in its early stages because you're able to feel that something is quite off from what would be considered your normal self.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, two things come to mind. One is thinking of physical changes.
Yeah.
And, when you said, I thought you were going a different direction when you said we were taught from we're young. Especially for men, it is across the globe a challenge for men to be able to seek health care. They've been raised with this particular mentality that they should toughen up and take care of it or deal with it themselves. And so I think that especially when you think of the times that we're living in with COVID, any change is worth looking into. And it's the same for many other diseases. When you think of cancer, they'll tell you prevention is better than cure, cheaper than cure. And so you have to think of anything strange that your body is signaling to you is changing, that it's worthwhile to go check it out. It may be nothing, and there's no shame to that. It means, thank goodness, I don't have anything to worry about. But it could be something that you can nip in the bud immediately, or at least put yourself on the right path towards healing.
Yep. It all comes down to knowing your body, right? Everything goes back to what you know to be your 100% normal self and what you can easily detect as something that is not what it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do hope that that's something that you take into consideration as you get your day started. Lie down in your bed, see how you're feeling. It just takes sometimes a moment of quiet to really get a sense of how you're feeling, and be sure to act accordingly. Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So with that, we are going to get moving into our weather update for today. And we have the update provided by the National Meteorological Service of Belize with forecaster Angelia Guy.
Good morning. Conditions have become slightly moist over the area. The 24-hour forecast is for skies to be sunny with cloudy spells today, along with a few showers mostly offshore and near central coastal areas this morning, then likely over central and southern mainland areas this afternoon. And then skies will be clear to partly cloudy tonight with isolated showers. High temperatures today will peak near 84 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 88 inland, and 74 in the hills. Low temperatures tonight will fall to about 74 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 66 inland, and 62 in the hills. Winds over the open sea will blow from the north and northeast at 5 to 15 knots, and sea conditions will be slight to light chop. High tide occurs at 2 minutes after 7 this morning, followed by low tide at 1:35 this afternoon. The sun rose at 9 minutes to 6 this morning and will set at 20 minutes past 5 this evening. The sun will set at 3:15 this afternoon and will rise at 3:33 tomorrow morning. The outlook: a few showers and isolated thunderstorms will first develop over offshore areas Tuesday morning, reaching near coastal areas, and then over some inland areas Tuesday afternoon, and then increasing especially offshore and along the coast on Tuesday night. In the tropical weather outlook, at 3 this morning, subtropical storm Wanda was centered near latitude 34.5 degrees north, longitude 43.9 degrees west, or about 970 miles west of the Azores. Wanda was moving to the southeast at 7 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour. Elsewhere in the North Atlantic, Caribbean Sea and Gulf of Mexico, tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next couple of days. And that ends this morning's weather report and forecast from the National Meteorological Service. Good.
All right. A little more rains we can expect.
That's all right.
No one's complaining.
That's right. We want to thank Angelia Guy for that update this morning. And with our housekeeping out of the way, it's time for us to take a look at the big stories coming out from the weekend and in the week ahead. So we're going to shift gears to Eye on the News.
So Prime Minister John Briceño is heading a delegation of 30 government officials who are either all now present in Glasgow, Scotland, or at some point over the next few days they will all arrive to participate in COP26. A little background history on what COP26 is for persons who may not necessarily be aware of this particular initiative. It simply stands for Conference of the Parties. It began in 1995 in Berlin, Germany, and out of that have come several agreements. Now, the COP series, if I should use that expression, is a meeting of world leaders to discuss certain issues, including the state of the earth, environment, climate, etc. Now, in 1997, the first agreement that came out of the COP meetings was the Kyoto Protocol. Out of the Kyoto Protocol, the participating countries agreed on how to address the issue of emissions and what have you, right? And the global warming phenomena that we continue to experience. The most recent one, which many people are also following, was COP21 in 2015, which brought about the Paris Agreement, which succeeded the Kyoto Protocol, right? And the COP series is not without its controversies as well. You would recall, Marlene, that under former President Trump, the United States withdrew from its participation in the COP series. There were also certain African countries who expressed disappointment in some of the issues that they brought to the fore that weren't necessarily addressed in the manner in which they thought it would have been. Now, to localize the discussion, as I mentioned earlier, PM Briceño has quite a huge support staff, if I may, that is out there along with him. We're looking at the images that have been shared with us from Scotland last night, where he was saying at midnight they were still making final preparations before his presentation. All right? And so, again, as I mentioned, you have the Minister of Foreign Affairs there, the Minister of State in Finance, you have the Attorney General, the Minister of the Blue Economy, right? And several other high-level government officials who form this delegation.
So the COP is going to take place over the span of 2 weeks. And today and tomorrow is the World Leaders Summit. So the first group of the delegation, which include those that you're seeing here at the table, are currently in Scotland preparing. Well, actually, it's almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon there, so they're in the thick of things for the World Leaders Conference, World Leaders Summit, that is. What happens after these 2 days is critical, and I think that this is one of the things where globally the conversation is how pivotal this particular COP is due to all the natural disasters we've been seeing across the world. And putting it into context for us, we've already been seeing the effects of climate change for a very long time. And small countries that are severely affected have been represented at COP, kind of, you know, that small voice trying to say, hey, look at us. You're trying to decide how much you will reduce emissions by. Meanwhile, we're already feeling the impact from what is already taking place. Some scientists say, you know, if adequate action is not taken or agreed to at this COP, we're looking at a potential climate disaster in our lifetime. So it is an absolutely crucial moment. When you think of the erosion, when you think of sea level rising and the impact it would have right here where we're at in Belize City. I know when we had Dr. Young on, he talked about, you know, look at how we see puddles forming in the middle of a sunny day in Belize City when there's a high tide. The sea level is rising. Look at when we talk about droughts or farming communities where they used to have some level of predictability with rain when they were planting their crops. That no longer is there. And then we have the opposite end where you see catastrophic flooding that takes place, what was the measure, every 100 years? Taking place as well. So we know that we in Belize and countries like us are already feeling the effects. So it's so important that we have the right representation and that we can take a solid case to COP so that we can push and remind the rest of the world that while they're negotiating numbers, there are people in parts of the world who are already losing livelihoods and losing lives.
What is particularly interesting here as well, Marlene, is that Belize's attendance at COP26 comes on the heels of the Blue Bond Initiative also being formalized through Parliament, right? And so that is partly the reason why there are members of the delegation who will be there to specifically discuss where we go forward in terms of conservation and, you know, falling within the context of the Blue Bond. And so
we do want to say, of course, that our Dwayne Moody from News 5 will be there. He is covering for the next 2 weeks all the meetings that are taking place. So he'll be providing updates to us daily, and he'll also be able to share on social media some of the ongoing efforts that are being made. So there's the world leader level, and then there's also the technical team level. And the technical team, they work, I mean, this is where, you know, they always say the devil is in the details. Who will do what? Who commits to what? And a key part of this is financing. Where there has been a commitment from those, let me put it as simply as I can, for those who are contributing towards the problem, they've committed a large sum of money for those who are already feeling the impact of a problem they did not create. Now, while there was a particular number that was agreed upon, they have not followed through on it. And that's
many
how
of the large economies have been unable to make good on the agreements that they've signed on to.
Unable or unwilling. And I think that's a big question going in. As we see, the young people have been such a driving force behind kind of getting the conversation about climate change going. We have the young Kiefer Mess, who represented us at the Youth Summit just last week, which was kind of a preliminary event heading into COP. We were told that, you know, his presentation was so impressive. They're asking him to stay on and to meet with the president of the UN. So these are all things that are promising. The more people hear how we are affected The more we can remind everyone that this is not just about dollars and cents, that it is about real lives and livelihoods.
The global objective, Marlene, is to reach what is called net zero by 2050. Now, whether that is ambitious, an objective is yet to be seen given all the challenges that are being faced at the individual country levels and what have you. But that is where we are insofar as the beginning of our COP26 coverage.
That's right.
As you've mentioned, our colleague Dwayne Moody will be providing more up-to-date information in the days ahead, right?
Yeah, he's in the skies right now, but he'll give us
to Glasgow.
That's right.
All right, so we transition from the climate change situation on the global level to what's taking place in Belize on the environmental front. Now, we've been covering the issues surrounding the development that is Port Coral and Stake Bank for quite some time. We go back to as far as 2013, I believe it was, where there was the initial consultations that were held at the Biltmore. And since then, we've been keeping a close eye on what has been taking place. Marlene, at the end of last week, and of course this would have been preceded by a press conference that was held by FECTAB earlier in the week, but towards the end of last week, we know that 2 letters were sent out to, one to former Minister Tracy Tager-Panton, and the other to the talk show host Vaughn Gill. And these letters were sent by the law firm of Glenn D. Godfrey with respect to comments that were made in the media surrounding the Stake Bank development. Now, there is another letter that was recently sent out, and this is from the government of Belize to the law firm of Morales Perafit, which represents another tourism developer. And the letter essentially is in response to a request that was made via the Freedom of Information Act to get some documents and some information with respect of the docking facility at Stake Bank. And this was being made through the Department of the Environment. And so CEO Kenrick Williams writes back to the law partner in which he is basically saying that the files that are being requested cannot be found. And again, this is in the context of an ongoing suit that is before the Supreme Court, right? And so the other developer that I mentioned, David Gegg, who is for the Port of Magical Belize, is on as an interested party along with the government of Belize. And so it is via this means that the Freedom of Information Act was invoked to try to get a hold of these documents. And so essentially they're saying that the Department of the Environment cannot locate these files, right? And so in the letter, the CEO essentially apologizes for the breakdown in transparency and accountability insofar as these critical pieces of information. It just goes to show that, you know, there's a lot that's being covered with respect of this situation from the very beginning. And
it doesn't help that there was a change of administration in between, because these files predate the current administration. So it does make it particularly challenging.
So it's an interesting thing that we're keeping a close eye on. There are several documents that have been made available in respect of these requests and the developments that are happening in respect of Stake Bank. So I just wanted to put that there as well. The other quick thing that I wanted to touch on, Marlene, is the Belize Medical Dental Association has also come forward with its position in respect of the legalization and the quote regularization of marijuana use in the country. And so it's a 5-page document that they have also released with respect of their position, right? And essentially they're saying that while they will not stop or object to government being able to pursue new industries, because this falls under the new growth industry, that there are also certain concerns nonetheless that they're putting forward. And this is from a technical and a medical point of view. It's not another party that's coming forward to object for the sole purpose of objecting. They have done their research as well as a survey that was conducted that informs their position.
Yeah.
So we'll
and
also
as many as 75% of the physicians that they surveyed have agreed to the legalization of marijuana. That's really interesting. But they do, of course, push for the education around it as well. You know, I think that the assumption was at the last House meeting that we would have seen the bills come forward. That did not take place. And so it seems that there still is an ongoing process, perhaps with consultation, to see where the conversation with the legalization of marijuana will move.
Yeah. And we know that that's a hot button issue with respect of the church's position and all these other stakeholders who have weighed in on the discussion.
Well, I mean, the Belize Medical and Dental Association is a key player, I think, in this conversation, because they actually do work with patients who would, face any type of health consequences from overuse of this particular drug. So I think that it's an interesting development as we keep the conversation going.
Now, switching over to COVID and the pandemic situation, we know that a new statutory instrument comes into effect, and it will remain as such for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I know that there was an initial target that we were trying to achieve as a country insofar as the infection rate and all of these other things that would have allowed us to kind of, quote unquote, free up a bit more. We have been unable to meet that threshold, and so the 9 o'clock curfew remains in effect for the remainder of the year. What we do know as well, Marlene, is that churches will allow for persons to attend service who may not necessarily be vaccinated. So there is no particular mandate for persons to present a negative or a vaccination card, for that matter, to attend their daily mass or their weekly service.
Yeah, and that does come with some stipulations with length of time, capacity, and also following through with the other COVID protocols. It's been a change from what was first announced, because it was at first that churches would only be allowed to have vaccinated persons or have them provide tests. And of course, one sector of the church community, the NEAB, the evangelical group, came out and opposed it. It seems there was some bending done there. So it is still, of course, an issue I know that is hotly debated. So we're going to be having more of that conversation with the Council of Churches today. But there is also the reopening of casinos, and that will be for fully vaccinated persons and also with fully vaccinated employees. That is also another key development. I imagine, remember, casinos were allowed to open. It was, I can't even gauge the time anymore. It's what, 2 months, 3 months ago? And they had to reverse on that decision as there were some cases that popped up there. But if you consider the fact that these employees have been out of work since almost March 2020, on and off again, it seems that this is another compromise that was made. The curfew is perhaps a bit disappointing to people because we were hoping for 1 extra hour at the end of the day. But as we have been seeing and reporting over the past month, we are seeing a larger number of cases. The positivity rate did go down, but I'm guessing, and if we can get some official comment to find out, I'm guessing that perhaps it's not quite where they need it to be to feel comfortable to allow for more interactions. Belize City still has one of the larger number of new cases detected per day, but we do see other parts of the country now having higher numbers as well. So. I think it is absolutely important that we keep on following all the protocols. The booster shots were rolled out on Friday, and of course that is for persons over 60, persons with high risk groups, and frontline workers who can be able to access that booster shot. Something that's been happening in other parts of the world, and it has been proven to be helpful as we see people with high risk people who are fully vaccinated and high risk still being hospitalized and even losing their life to COVID.
And finally, we have been following the progress with pediatrician Dr. Cecilia Eck, and we can report that he's off ventilator.
Yeah, the family posted an update online and said that he has been removed from the ventilator at this point in time. So this is great news. He has also, so I think that over the past few days, the entire country has been praying for him. You know, there are people who are able to survive this disease even after being intubated. We featured some of them here on the show, and Dr. Eck is someone who the public has become very close to in the medical advice that he's offered. So this is a good sign, but of course COVID is an incredibly unpredictable disease, so the prayers must continue as well as the well wishes.
Yep. All right, so that rounds out the Eye on the News for us this morning. Certainly these stories will be covered in full in our 6 p.m. newscast. You can catch it on News 5 Live, or you can catch our streamed content on Facebook and YouTube. That comes up at 6 o'clock. That does it for the Eye on the News.
Be part of enormous opportunity in agriculture.
All right, and as we said, our first conversation for this morning, we're going to be talking to a representative of the Belize Council of Churches about the latest SI and how they plan to reopen churches safely for everyone who wants to attend.
And our second conversation is with the National Forensic Science Service as we celebrate the 17th anniversary of the establishment of the Scenes of Crimes Unit in Belize.
All right. So that's what we have in store for you today. We're going to go ahead and take that break. But before we do, we got a birthday shout out. And we are saying happy birthday to
Angelica Heredia. There she is.
All right, Angelica, you have a great day today from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. We'll take that break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Bishop Philip Wright. So please stay tuned.
Bundle the fastest, most reliable, unlimited broadband in Belize with your prepaid or postpaid mobile plan or Netflix. You can bundle your broadband with your prepaid and enjoy 50% off all national calls, plus get SMS and data. Paid plans? Then bundle with any speed and pay only $25 extra monthly to enjoy unlimited smart-to-smart calls, plus 500 minutes, plus 6,300 megabytes of data. Stream unlimited HD movies and TV shows with our broadband, plus the Netflix add-on for only $30 monthly, and enjoy streaming on your laptop, TV, phone, or tablet. Visit a smart showroom near you to sign up or upgrade to the bundle that's right for you. Smart, bringing people together.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform.
Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go.
You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code.
Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle.
The future is here with eCash.
For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
I was approached by our district president, Mr. Garcia, to attend a workshop because we, as a men fellowship, discussed different issues pertaining to men. And while I attended the session, I found it very beneficial, interesting, and educational. There are lots of youths who I have taught and who live in the community where I'm working. They are young men, young adults, and the sessions that we did would help them, I felt that it would be beneficial if I speak to these men on a one-to-one or peer basis to discuss the same issues that we discuss in our sessions so that they can impact some change in their lives. We discuss gender issues, crime and violence, gender roles, and they are very receptive to the learning to what I had shared with them. Not everyone would be open to going to a session that we have, but by this medium that I approached in mentoring them, talking to them, I felt that more was able to be discussed with them. It made a greater impact in their lives, and I felt better about it. The biggest takeaway was the man box, and that men do wear masks everywhere they go. At home, they're wearing a mask with their family, with their friends, they're wearing another mask at their jobs, another mask. So everywhere they go, they have to wear a mask to fit in with society. And I learned a lot that we need to unpack that man box to show our true selves.
Hey, Dad.
Hi, Brian. Stop running around the house.
Right now, Dad.
Damn it, Brian! I told you stop it! Can't you hear me? Are you deaf? Or you just being
Time out. Your life is stressful, and it is easy to lose your patience. When you feel this is about to happen, take a time out. Harsh words are verbal violence and can be very harmful. They are not forgotten. Offering alternatives and communicating with your child is the best way to build real respect.
I'm sorry, Brian. That just had a rough day at work. Can you do something quiet?
Do you want a job?
That's more like it.
With the touch of a finger, we can easily unlock our phones and securely gain access to our data. This technology is called biometrics, and the Social Security Board is introducing fingerprint recognition to make transactions and handling of your sensitive data secure, fast, accurate, and convenient. Is your identity safe? Fingerprint recognition will keep your Social Security record secure and confidential while making your access fast and easy. It protects your identity. Is your name a common one? Fingerprint recognition uses your unique characteristics, ensuring your hard-earned benefits go directly to you, the rightful owner. Tired of all the paperwork? Fingerprinting makes this hassle-free. Your convenience and your information security is our priority. Fingerprint recognition coming soon. Social Security at your fingertips.
The TV you love is always with you. From live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV. Entertainment anytime, anywhere.
With RF&G Insurance, you can request a quote, renew a policy, purchase a policy, and even file a claim effortlessly with WhatsApp. Here's how. WhatsApp the words "Get Started" to 670-8700. We will prompt you to select the service that you are interested in. Select the service and answer a few simple questions. An RF&G representative will process your request and follow up with you when your transaction is completed. It's that easy. Skip lines and WhatsApp us. Remember, it pays to get it right with RF&G Insurance, a Road Group company.
How can we support the emotional well-being of older adults during COVID-19? During the COVID-19 pandemic, and particularly while in quarantine, individuals, including older adults, may become more anxious, angry, stressed, agitated, or withdrawn, especially those who need healthcare assistance or have cognitive decline or dementia. Here are 4 strategies that can help you in supporting an older adult during this difficult time. 1. Communicate information and listen. Present with accurate, simple, and accessible information and facts about the COVID-19 outbreak, its progression, treatment, and effective strategies to prevent infection. Listen patiently to their needs and concerns. For older people with mild cognitive impairment or early stages of dementia, inform them of what is happening within their capacity and provide support to ease their anxiety and stress. 2. Promote positive mental and emotional health. Provide access to available mental health and psychosocial support services, also known as MHPSS services, for older adults and communicate when and how they can access them. Help older people keep regular routines and schedules as much as possible. You can also help them create new ones, including regular exercising, cleaning, daily chores, singing, painting, or other activities. Facilitate regular communication between older adults and their friends and families. 3. Help with medical needs. Make sure that older adults have at least up to 1 month of all the regular medicines that they may require. Explain how to use protective devices in a clear, concise way. Always be respectful and patient. 4. Assist with daily activities. Provide older people with details related to how and where they can get practical help if needed, like calling a taxi, dropping off supplies, having groceries delivered, and requesting medical care, as well as information on any locally available social support programs and services. For more information, consult the webpage of the Pan American Health Organization, www.paho.org/coronavirus.
COVID-19 continues to change the way we do things, and in the agriculture industry, it is no different. At the onset of the pandemic, the tourism industry was shattered, and the agro-producers who supplied those resorts and restaurants felt the pinch.
COVID affected, I would say, our farmers in terms of, we would say, well, there was a market contraction because we lost the tourism sector. A lot of our producers was going to the tourism sector.
Many of those who became jobless returned to their roots and to farming communities.
Due to COVID, the whole world recognizes the importance of agriculture, in that economies have struggled, and most of all, people have struggled now to put food on the table. And as such, the agriculture sector became of summa importance. Many people who are working in the tourism sector lost their jobs, and in other sectors, people lost their job not because of choice, but simply because COVID struck. But these persons were faced with the everyday question: how do they put food on the table? So many of those same persons had agriculture background. They decided to return back to farming in order to put food on the table. And as a result, we are now seeing an increased number of farmers, new farmers. And then those existing farmers, because of this demand for their produce, decided that they would ramp up their production. And as such, for this year, we are projecting that there will be an abundance of food being produced in Belize.
Those commodities are specifically carrots, onions, and potatoes. And while there has been an increase in persons heading to the markets, Belizeans are not only eating greener, but the kinds of produce consumers are seeking has also changed, not to mention the price.
Last year, there was the change in dynamics as to how we eat. Food became part and parcel of medicine. And everybody started to remember ginger, they started to remember vervain, fever grass, and all the other herbs which at some point in time they were hardly looked at or were never used before. So in that regards, we have changed. Today, the price of ginger is almost like $10 a pound. Or in some places, 14. So you know that there is a strong demand for this item, because it helps, or it is perceived to help mitigate the effects of COVID.
Although you may think that an increase in the number of farmers means there is less to go around, it is quite the opposite. CEO in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Security and Enterprise, Serval Abaiza, says that it has actually made the country become less reliant on imported goods and more food secure.
When you look at the actual consumption of the local people, I guess closing down the borders also helped our farmers to a certain extent. You saw that the consumption of beans went up, consumption of rice went up. I just got a report like yesterday, for instance, that the consumption of beef, one of our processors was saying that their consumption of beef also went up. So you see that in some areas we say maybe we lost some of the demand, but in certain other areas it did go. People have to eat. Who will put the food on the table? That can't stop. So you saw that the agricultural sector was very resilient, continued producing and continued to supply our people with food. So food security is very important. So if the biggest lesson that in terms of agriculture, if you want to ask me, what was the biggest lesson in agriculture, is that we have to make sure that we invest in agriculture. We need to make sure that we have a strong agricultural sector that can withstand any kind of disaster.
COVID-19 presented the need for food security.
When you look at the reports from FAO and so on, the biggest concern was food security, because countries who do not produce their food were in serious problems. Thankfully, here in Belize, we are self-sufficient in all our basic grains and in our meats. We are self-sufficient, and that helped us tremendously.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
And welcome back. We have joining us via phone this morning Pastor Lance Lewis. He is a member of the National Evangelical Association of Belize. He's also a past president of NEAB. Good morning, Pastor Lewis.
Good morning.
This morning we're going to discuss with you the recent meeting that was held with the Prime Minister in respect of the vaccine situation and the churches. Let's begin by talking firstly about that particular meeting. To the best of your knowledge, what the outcome was and what the discussions were in terms of sitting at the table with the PM.
Okay, the meeting was held at the PM's office on October 6th. It was a Wednesday morning. And we had members of the NEAB and also the president of the Belize Association of Evangelical Churches. So there was the National Evangelical Association of Belize, where the president and a few other persons and myself were there. And we also invited the president of the VAEC, Belize Association of Evangelical Churches, which is Pastor Stanford. At that meeting, we discussed the various things, and the Prime Minister had said that the Cabinet had met the day before, and they are in agreement for the churches to reopen. Mark, he said that the medical professionals were not so keen in the churches reopening at this time, but the Cabinet felt that it could be done with the proper protocols being observed. And of course, those protocols were the hand washing, the social distance, the 50% of the capacity of the church building was also another one, and the mask, and then the 1 hour service. No, so the discussion went on. It was amicable, but at no time was there any talk about the fact that we have to have persons with vaccinated cards or vaccinated persons coming to service. So we had no problem. There was no difference in, opinion as against what the Prime Minister said. We were on the same page. So we left there feeling, well, this is quite well. Nothing came out on that meeting publicly until a week after, on the 13th, when apparently the Prime Minister spoke to maybe 2 media houses, and then we noticed that he was saying that the churches were in agreement for opening, following the mandates, and he went on to talk about well, I must say, in one instance, he spoke about the vaccination. So he spoke, to my knowledge, on 2 situations of one vaccinated and the other one, he didn't mention it. So we, of course, heard the main one, which is vaccinated cards, and people started calling and texting President Victor Hernandez. I got a few calls too, and so it was very bit disturbing that they said, we can't let down the church like that. We sell out the church and we bow into pressure and all type of things. So we had to come together on the platform and discuss it, and so that we'd have to write a letter to the Prime Minister, which we did. And eventually there was an answer that he called the President, Pastor Victor Hernandez, and told him that yes, they will allow the churches to go without being vaccinated. No, it is not. We are not saying that we are against vaccination. We are not anti-vaxxers. And I can also say that many of us have been vaccinated. So we are not against it. But the idea of saying, well, you cannot come to church if you are not vaccinated and you don't show a card, that would be a bit of a big challenge, because I'm telling you, sometimes a person comes to church for the first time. Now, if you're coming to church for the first time, you really want to come to church, because there are some people like that. And then you are told, can I see your vaccination card? And you are told, well, you said the person, I don't have one.
Let me pause you there for a second,
come.
Pastor Lewis, and quiz you a bit here. There's a certain sense of responsibility that the church has in the context of this pandemic. And so one could perhaps argue that you would be well within your right to request that churchgoers present a vaccine card to ensure that they are perhaps not participating in the transmission of. Let's put it that way. Can it be argued from that perspective?
Well, it's fine. Yes, we could look at it that way. Yes, but I'm saying that to tell people, a person comes up and he doesn't have a card, he or she doesn't have a card to come into the church. You are going to tell them, no, you realize the implication of that. It's church,
Yeah.
That is a very serious situation to hear, no, you can't come in.
I do figure that is at the core of the issue for the churches. Can I just ask a question? So you're representing the National Evangelical Association of Belize. There's also the Belize Council of Churches, and they had put forward a video supporting vaccination. Bishops from different denominations, church leaders from different denominations, encouraging persons to be vaccinated. Was NIAB a part of that message, calling for people to be vaccinated?
Not to my knowledge. I don't remember us getting any invitation to say that.
Oh, there was no invitation?
But as I know, we were not included in that, as far as I know.
Okay. Has NIAB put out its own message calling for persons to be vaccinated?
We didn't send out a message calling for people to be vaccinated.
Why
Though
not, Pastor?
Individual ones of us have done it.
Why?
Yes.
Why not?
Well, I think that we have a very varied set of people under the banner of evangelical. And that creates another problem in itself. Actually, when the PM made a statement, and people pick up that we were in agreement for the churches to open, but with people with vaccinated cards. People were up in arms from the evangelical circles, coming at us and saying, how could we do that? So you find a number of small churches within the NEAB also, and a number of churches in remote areas, because we are in all the districts. And so the factor of being able to go on the church service platform is difficult. It's impossible for some. So they want a fellowship. The smaller churches in particular, the more rural churches, they want to be in the church, they want to be fellowshipping. And the long time of lockdown and restrictions have caused a very serious pressure on them. So, yeah, we would never have taken on that position. Though
Can I just
many of us.
Can I just ask, Pastor Lewis, if you're comfortable sharing, if you are vaccinated and if you would want to encourage people to get vaccinated, personally?
Yes, I have said that. I have said that, and I have gotten in trouble for it, but I have said it. I am vaccinated. My wife is vaccinated. My family is vaccinated. Yeah, we are all vaccinated. Many of our church members are vaccinated, but we will not say, if you're not vaccinated, you cannot come. The 50% entrance will also cause people to say, well, I can't steer them because I have the internet, whatever. So we are vaccinated and we promote that. But we are not now going to disallow people who are not. Because, you know, Christ's mission and message is to reach all. And whosoever will may come.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this though. As church leaders, you have great social and religious influence. You may not necessarily be part of a daily homily or a weekly homily if that were the case, but what is the message that has been sent in respect of the pandemic situation and perhaps the need for persons to be informed in order to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to get vaccinated?
The message is for each person to educate themselves as much as possible. That is find out all the different angles to look at it, see what is happening in countries, see that the cases of people dying from COVID are greater with the unvaccinated. Although there is now the reporting of deaths, and it shows that some were vaccinated fully, and some were partially, and some were not, and they died. So the big issue, I think, is to do this social distance, wear your mask, don't get into crowds, and keep yourself as safe as possible. My brother, who lives in the States, was fully vaccinated. His daughter was not. But he just thought that he was okay, so he embraced her, and before long he got COVID, though he was fully vaccinated. But because he was fully vaccinated, he recovered from it within a week. So he was back to work within 1 week. You know, but then it happened that I know another friend that the daughter went out on a trip with some young people, and both the father and the mother, well, the father was vaccinated, the mother was not. You have some situation where husband and wife are in a bit of a problem because one is vaccinated and one doesn't like it. The mother was not vaccinated, and then the child came back and she caught COVID and died. The mother was not vaccinated.
Wow.
From her daughter.
I wanted to ask, you know, just a very practical question, because there are concerns from people about the allowance of vaccinated and unvaccinated people in an enclosed space. I know you're required to have ventilation. It can't be completely enclosed. But given the transmissibility of Delta and what we've seen, how it impacts even vaccinated people, even leading to death, it is concerning for a lot of people that the churches are still making this exception. And I think from last week, I've said on the show, I imagine that it's very hard for a church to to turn away someone who's trying to turn to God. My question is this. I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were to categorize the majority of the persons who come for in-person service, they're usually of the elderly population.
Yeah.
There is a high prevalence of obesity in this country. There's a high prevalence of diabetes and hypertension. All these persons, even if fully vaccinated, are at high risk of getting COVID and possibly facing severe complications. Now, as of Friday, they're allowed to go for booster shots. Do you think the church would be open to at least delay this so that people who genuinely want to turn to their faith and feel protected by their current vaccination don't put themselves at risk just for the fear fact that they are singing in a church with a person who is unvaccinated and asymptomatic?
Well, the distancing is a critical factor. We would put families in the same, even in the same house, in the same space in terms of benches. We worked it out. We personally in my church have not opened as yet. Although we are saying we're going to, and we did a survey. So what we did was to take a survey of the members, and some said yes, they were willing to come back to church with the protocols, and we're planning to do that next week. So they know what the protocols will be. Now, even during the survey, the fact is that person from outside can come. We believe that the persons who are coming, who will be coming to church, would be vaccinated for the most part, being the ones who did the survey. The problem is the church door is going to be open, and people hear that the churches are now allowed to be open, so they can come in. I don't foresee a crowd like normal coming to church. You know, I think that it will be more caution. There be more caution, because with all the opening and opportunity, people will not throw caution to the wind for the most part. And we preaching that message: don't throw caution to the wind. And so we don't really see a problem from my perspective. Now, I must be careful here, because some cases they will throw caution to the wind and sing out loud and shout and, you know, all type of things. So
I was about to ask
there is in my mind a possibility that you could have a spread because of some places not properly handling the situation.
I was just about to ask you about that, Pastor Lewis, because the question is, how do you temper what would ordinarily be a lively celebration? I mean, some people go to church to be able to participate in the singing and the offertory and all of these other features of the mass service. How do you now sort of restrain that when that is, for all intents and purposes, at the heart of celebrating Christ?
Well, wearing the mask, you'll be keeping the distance, and of course, we'll have to now tone down the volume. We will not use hymn books. We will project the hymns on the music on a screen in church, so that also negates any holding of books, because we wouldn't have books for everybody. At full capacity, we would not have, you know. But we will do the as best as we can to minimize any such possibility. And we are not perfect, so there is always a little loophole. So it's a risk one is taking, a risk that you are taking, praying and depending on God to protect, and using as much common sense and much COVID precautions as necessary. But we are glad that the opportunity will come, or has come, for people to come to church if they so want, desire, and whosoever will may come. But we are not going to just throw our hands down and say, well, everything is fine now, God will protect us, let's open it like that and don't take the precaution. We are praying and we are planning and we are preparing and we are planning to open next week. By the grace of God.
Have you had a discussion with your flock, perhaps on a one-on-one? I'm gathering it's not on a collective basis, but perhaps in one-on-one interaction to get a sense from them, their views on this situation?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier on, what we did is we sent out a survey and asked, we're planning to open church in another week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Are you planning to come to do the service, or will you continue online? Because we're going to do the same online and in-person service. So we have an idea now who are planning to come. Those who have answered yes. Some have answered no, they won't. They will stay online. So those are people who are vaccinated in some cases and some are not. So, we think that the best we can do is offer it to them to make a decision. The church will be open. Will you come? Yes or no? No, fine. But of course, the big issue is 50% 1 hour. That is the big thing. 60% 1 hour.
It also has to be open air, proper ventilation?
Yes.
So no enclosed churches?
We will open all our doors, all our windows. Yeah. And, if there was an issue, then we could borrow a tent. Well, except the fact that there is some prediction of rain coming in this season. There is a La Nina situation might develop and will affect. So we will have to stay in the building. Yeah. But we will open and have the space and have the 1 hour. That's the plan.
Pastor, how do you respond to people who have criticized this call from the evangelical group to allow for unvaccinated persons, speaking of it as irresponsible for persons who could potentially put themselves at risk, even if they're vaccinated?
Well, the point is that we're saying the persons who are fearful and are vaccinated and now know that people who are unvaccinated will be allowed to come. They don't necessarily have to come. And this service will still be online, so they will still get it. Just as we did yesterday was our anniversary service, it was online, and people got it, and people, interestingly, we are having people outside of our area, outside of our country, joining the service now with the new way of doing things through the Zoom link or the Teams link. So it's very interesting. We have a Sunday school now that has been operating in larger ways now than when we were together, because people from abroad who had connection with the church have linked in and are part of the Sunday. The children are part of the Sunday school. So this is a plus. So whichever way you go, it's a plus.
But doesn't it take away?
I know that there can be a negative thing if something occurs that somebody got COVID because of coming.
If you were to look at the benefits and the drawbacks of the direction that you guys have now taken in terms of presenting this service via Zoom, wouldn't you agree that perhaps you've lost some of the intimacy that would have accompanied being in church in person?
Definitely. If you read the scriptures, the whole situation there, now, God would have known about COVID, is that there's togetherness. The word of God shows togetherness. Let us not forsake the assembling of ourselves together, so much the more as we see the day approaching. So that's a very big and powerful thing for us. And we know the vibes that come from meeting people and greeting people. It's such greater connectivity than the connection that comes through the internet. So that's how we are built. So people want it, but there are people who want it and realize it might be dangerous, so they don't come. So the issue is now is the space is now available, the church is now available for you to come to, if you so desire. But these are the protocols you'll have to observe, and so on and so forth. some people who are vaccinated will not come because they can see the service on live, and they're not so going to be pushing themselves. They figure that if they wait long enough, they will be able to meet together as normal in the near future, God's willing. So it's a great thing, I think, to have the place open for whosoever will may come. But it also says to other people that, look, this is what is going to happen. So if you are fearful, you can stay and watch it online.
So sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, and then I know you've been a bit clear before where you said some of these actions you've described are what you're doing. But is this across the board? You keep on speaking of smaller rural evangelical churches. But if there is a body, an association that they fall under, can you or are you getting the rest of the membership to agree to have that same level of responsibility where they offer both online and in person, ensure 50% open air, and that you don't have groups that will use the church's name and break these rules?
All right, I want to be straight with a situation that might have happened through your station. Listen to me carefully, Last week I was on this station, and apparently the person who was hosting it, said to me that they got a letter saying that we were against vaccination, we were against masks and all that. I said, where do you get that from? I'm sure it's from the evangelicals. I said, well, I don't know about that because we have never taken that stance. And eventually the letter was produced, but it is from a group that has the name evangelical in it, but not connected to us. So there is a three-way play taking place. There are those who are against vaccination for some reason or the other, but still will wear a mask and do all the necessary things. They might be against vaccination for maybe health reason. And then there are those who are adamant that we should not wear a mask, we should not be vaccinated, and they want to have church, and then that's what they're pushing forward. So you have that extreme, then you have the middle ground people who would say, we are whosoever will may come, take precaution, we will do the necessary precautions. So you have that set. And then you have the set that says, no, I won't go unless it is open only to vaccinated ones. So there's a three-way thing. Now within the NEAB, we more have not the three-way. We're not in the category that says that you have to throw away your mask. You should just have a laissez-faire free trade thing. No mask, no vaccination, no protocols. There are people who claim to be Christians who have that belief. No mask, no vaccination, no regulations. Just do what you want. We are free. We're not in that category. The NEAB is not in that category. The NEAB has persons who are pushing for vaccination, and it has people who are not pushing against it, but not taking it. But there's not any crowd in the NEAB that I know of that is pushing against vaccination. But there are some who cannot take the vaccine.
That's a very important distinction that you're making. So you're saying there are smaller evangelical groups that have been the ones out there not associated with NEA.
No, it's not necessarily smaller, but there is a group under the name of evangelical not connected to the NEAB that is pushing against vaccination and against mask, wearing of mask, and that group is in Belize. And I'm just telling you that last week the host who called me thought that we were that group, and I said no 1,000 times, no, it's a different group. And eventually the letter was found, and it was clearly not from NEAB, not from BAEC, but from another group that has the name evangelical.
So we
are not in that category.
You understand why the perception is out there, because as the National Evangelical Association, the assumption was that they either fall under NEAB or they're associated.
No,
I mean the assumption that people make.
There's another set of evangelicals who are against mask wearing and against vaccination mandate, and they're in this country. and they're outside of this country.
And they are not a part of NIAB.
They're not a part of NIAB. That is how it is. When that letter was shown to me, I knew before, because I knew we never had any such situation where people are against mask wearing, against vaccination. No, not in NIAB. So it's a different group under the name of evangelical. And I won't go any further but to say a different group under that we use in the name evangelical, but another word attached to it.
So with the developments of the previous meeting with the Prime Minister being in the church's favor, what message do you have to congregants at this point ahead of the church's reopening?
Well, some churches have reopened already. But we are saying that do it with an abundance of caution. And we would also say keep to the time frame. Of course, we don't think anybody is going to police the 1 hour, but we will do as much as possible to stay in line with that. And we are also saying do this social distancing. So what we have done in our church, we're marking off benches so that the 6 feet apart is there. Let's say the bench is 12 foot long, then, there's 2 sets. But if a family comes, then the family can sit together. Family from the same house can sit together. Otherwise than that, it is the 6 feet apart and the other protocols.
In terms of the protocols, are they being treated in perhaps the same manner in which one would be expected to either get his or her temperature read before going in, provide the hand sanitizers and those other measures?
No, we know that's a point. We have not come up with a temperature reading, but I'm sure somebody who could have such a machine or
because
tool.
while you're open now to accept vaccinated or unvaccinated persons, perhaps it's within good reason that you'd at least take a temperature reading so you know who is entering the church.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because you go to some supermarkets and some business places, they take it, and I don't think the people complain and say, I'm not coming in because I'm not going to take a temperature reading. I think it's a good idea, and maybe we could look at that, getting one of these machines that check your temperature. I suppose that would be fine, because really and honestly, people are not complaining about going into certain stores that require that you get checked for your temperature, so the church can do it. It would be hypocritical for them not to want to come in because of that.
Yeah.
Okay, and let me just ask, if the process gets easier to show vaccination status, do you think that there'd be a change in your position?
If the process gets
easier to show your vaccination status?
My position is I promote vaccination. I am not against those who are unvaccinated. I am not for the anti-vaxxers. I'm not in that camp, and I don't promote that group. If the process gets easier, as you said, well, I think eventually this thing will fade out. I think this thing will eventually pass. I don't know what else will come, but COVID will eventually lose its momentum somewhere or the other, and life will get back to normal. But we have to try to get it back to normal. Jump the gun in a sense with precaution. Well, it's happening in the sporting arena. It's happening in the Chinese shops. There is no card asked at Chinese shops.
No, well, in sporting arenas, they are mandated for vaccinations and often enter into what is called a bubble space before they can participate.
Where? The sports?
Yeah, in
but
sports.
Not the Chinese stores, not the Chinese shops. Restaurants might ask you.
Restaurants ask for vaccination status. Flights ask for vaccination status. So I hear your point, but I think the biggest concern is where we have not been able to successfully get through this particular wave of COVID. Is it the right time for this type of exception? But I do appreciate what you've said. You've distinguished that In fact, the National Evangelical Association of Belize is not anti-vax. You yourself are vaccinated and encourage others to be vaccinated. You simply don't want to be put in a position where someone who wants to go to the church and may be unvaccinated won't be turned away.
Right, this is correct.
Yeah.
Actually, I have someone like that in another church where I preach at. Wants to come to church badly, but cannot because, well, she can come. She wants to come, but she cannot get vaccinated, and she cannot get a letter from the doctor because the doctors are not allowed to do that. But she has a physical problem that does not allow her to take the vaccine, but she is a very avid and regular churchgoer. And actually, when she heard, I'll tell you what happened. My wife called her and told her that the church can open now. She cried. It was not a cry of pain, a cry of joy. She cried because here was she wanting to come. And of course, she falls into the whole category you pointed out. And now she found it going to be difficult for her to come. But when she heard that the churches are going to open 1 hour service, mask and all that, she cried. She cried.
Well, Pastor Lewis, of course, we appreciate you coming in and or for joining us. Unfortunately, we did tap into this conversation a bit last minute, but we do appreciate you being open to answer our questions, and we do hope that you stay safe.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
All right. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about the 17th anniversary of the establishment of the Scenes of Crimes Unit. So please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Hey son, how was your first day at Sixth Form?
Really cool. It was great to see my friends, and I really love my teachers.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day, but I'll be back from Corozal next week.
It's okay, Dad. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and please remember, I still have some books I need to purchase.
Ah, yes. Let me e-cash you that right now. Money has been sent. I add a little extra cash just for you.
Whoa, Dad. Thanks. Got it.
You're welcome, sir.
Download the eCash app today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257. eCash, the future is here.
We have been a partner with Smart for over 10 plus years. We have a full Smart plan we use as our major driver for our business. We have a service that rolls over in that if you call one and it is busy, it rolls over to the next line. So once you call us, you can get us at any time. Before we got this Smart service, we were paying upwards of nearly $2,000 in phone bills. Since we've had our Smart service, we pay an average of about $600. So we've had tremendous saving, more than 50%. For the businesses, if you want to save money, switch to Smart because it is far more cost effective, and the service is excellent.
SMART continues to be innovative in bringing new technology and meaningful savings during these challenging times to businesses across Belize. Sign up for our VoIP technology or broadband packages and save more.
This can be you. Get vaccinated. The life you save can be yours. This is a message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
And welcome back. We have been joined in studio for our second segment this morning by our friends from the National Forensic Science Service. Joining us is the Executive Director, Giancho. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Senior Crime Scene Technician, Romero Riverol.
Good morning.
We're going to be discussing the 17th anniversary of the establishment of the Scenes of Crimes unit in Belize. First of all, outline for us the important role that Scenes of Crimes help with in terms of investigating a crime situation.
All right. Well, again, morning to all of Belize, morning to all of our staff, and in particular to our crime scene technicians who, as you said, are celebrating their 17th anniversary. No? Scenes of Crime is one of the 3 units of the forensic department. And the staff in that unit, who we call crime scene technicians, have the extremely important task of responding to crime scenes, which are secured by police. Right? So the crime scene technicians provide that support, that technical support, to photograph, to document, to inspect the crime scene, and most importantly, to collect items of evidence, maintain custody, and submit for analysis. No? And well, Mr. Riverol, who's a senior technician, he can explain to you, and he's been there since the inception of the unit, 17 years ago. He can explain to you more where the unit functions, particularly alongside police, and how far it has come since that time. No?
So 17 years ago, how did you stumble into this profession?
Well, it's a profession that I have loved from years ago before I joined the police department.
Okay.
However, in 2004, I was fortunate enough to be one of the persons to actually be a part of the establishment of the new unit. Prior to 2004, the Scenes of Crime unit had already existed. It was the work was done by the police department they operated from Queen Street Police Station.
Okay.
They used to use black and white photograph at that time.
Wow.
And they were not functioning, they were not fully operating in the countrywide. Since 2004, when it was established, after 2 months of intense training, then we were all sent to different districts to operate alongside with the police department.
Now, a key difference here, and I guess we should get that out early, is that up to 2004, it was under the police department, then it was separated and is now under the forensic department.
No, actually, the separation to forensics was 2013.
Okay.
So up to 2004, it wasn't actually a defined unit. There were police officers providing that service. But in 2004, so Mr. Erwell said, that's when the unit was established under police.
Okay.
And you had designated civilian staff that were tasked to process scenes. And then from 2004 to 2013, unit grew, and there was need to establish it as a separate forensic unit. And in this line of work, independence and impartiality is crucial.
Yes.
Right, so the separation to include it with the laboratory, the forensic laboratory, and the medical examiner's office. Medical examiners also used to be under police.
Yeah.
That was done in 2013. Well, the decision was made in 2013. 2014 is when the full umbrella was actually established. No?
Describe for us the evolution of the crime scenes unit in terms of its capacity now to be able to carry out its functions.
Well, I can probably say that since 2004, we have grown up to be a fully equipped and functional unit. We have the capabilities of doing fingerprints, comparisons of fingerprints. We actually have reagents such as blue star, luminol, to actually detect if blood was present. We have grown so far. We have capabilities and standards just like America and other countries.
I know that when we think of crime scenes, a lot of perhaps what is being covered has to do with gun-related crimes and what have you. What is our ballistic capacity at this point? Where do we stand on that?
All right, so the forensic laboratories is another unit in the department. They're the ones that have the firearm section, or ballistic section. So the work starts at the scene, collecting the cartridge cases or the bullets recovered from the scene, or we call the fired components. Firearms as well, they assist in photographing and packaging, but police officers are typically the one that maintain custody of firearm and submit it to a laboratory. The forensic laboratory, the firearm section, has the ability to analyze firearms, do function testing to determine if it was capable of being fired, enter the fired components into IBIS, the database that does the matches or the comparisons, and actually certify a match or a comparison analysis as to whether this firearm was the one that was used in this scene, or these items linked back to this firearm. No?
So, you know, the distinguishment that scenes of crime is separate from the police department is a key one. But it's also a really important relationship to have with good communication. Very often the first persons on the scene will be the police. And we always hear people talk about securing the crime scene, or in the worst case scenario, contaminating the crime scene. How are we doing in that area? Is there sufficient enforcement in ensuring that the area where the crime was committed is secured for you to do your work?
Well, we have been having some slightly problems, not with the police department. The police department, normally when we arrive at the crime scene, they have always secured the crime scene for us. The problem is with the public. The public tends to, when they see their family there lying down, they want to always be there. And that is the issue. But working hand in hand with the police department, so far we have had not much problems with them. We try to work hand in hand in everything. And I believe we are doing fine so far.
What would be, you're celebrating 17 years, so you've had your fair share of challenges and your fair share of triumph in terms of being able to provide the kind of evidence to secure a conviction. In all of your years of service, what to you is one of the landmark cases that you guys have been able to solve and see done away with properly based on evidence that you've gathered from a crime scene?
There have been several cases countrywide. One of the latest in Belmopan. There have been cases in Corozal. All over the district, all over the country, we have some good cases that Scenes of Crime had produced quality work, and we have had convictions. I cannot specify none right now because, you know, there are certain cases that might come back again, retrials and what's not. So.
Well, perhaps I can, since in your professional capacity you're restrained from going in that direction, but perhaps I can put one out there. In covering the Danny Mason trial, the crime scenes technician was lauded by the sitting judge for the stellar work that was done in terms of gathering the evidence and bringing it and testing it before the court. I think that's one of those standout moments for me as a reporter. You know, being able to actually hear the judge say, you know what, this was exemplary work from the beginning to the end in terms of being on the scene, gathering all the necessary pieces of evidence, and presenting it before the court.
Yeah, and that technician that did that case, one of the the technicians that are very dedicated to the job. One that actually is about to retire very soon. So a very experienced technician, but the fact that they are capable of doing and delivering on their job duties, given some of the, quite honestly, the resources in certain offices, is outstanding work. It's very commendable, as you said, and they are not appreciated as much publicly. There are a lot of cases that, I mean, every week, at least one technician is in the courtroom testifying as a witness. But that's something that the public doesn't see. Right? We oftentimes just focus on when you hear nolle prosequa or case is thrown out or whatever, but there are a lot of times when cases, and not always the major crime cases, but I mean, the technicians respond to pretty much every crime scene.
Even a burglary, you can help with fingerprints.
Sexual assault, they are required to photograph and witness all post-mortem examinations that are conducted. So there's a lot of work that the public doesn't understand or is aware that technicians do every day, every single day.
And, you know, I think, thanks to Hollywood, and I know Jan definitely reminds us all the time that what you see on TV is different from the reality. But at least one thing we do know, that forensics can be a huge part in solving crime. So the police work and the investigation is one element, but sometimes that the critical information comes from the work that you do, the information you're able to collect that many of us won't be able to see at the surface level. Tell us about what it's like for you on the job when you step into a crime scene where the average person maybe just sees blood. You're looking for other things that are also critically important.
Well, the first thing I try to look at for things that most people would not want to, like trace evidence. The first thing you want to look at things that like where people might gain entrance to simply like a burglary, not the obvious things. Those are things that we try to look for. And while doing so, we have managed to collect things like fingerprints, footprints, and I can probably say right now, even though it might not sound like a lot, we have had several matches with fingerprints. We have had some convictions with fingerprints. Last year we had 4 fingerprint matches. This year we have 4 fingerprint matches so far. Collected over 400 prints every year. So
where do we build up that database from? Only from persons coming in contact with the law?
Criminal database, yes. And that's an example where police and forensics are intricately tied together. The forensic personnel, the crime scene technicians, are the one that process scene, lift the print, give an initial assessment of it, and send it to the fingerprint expert, the certified expert, which is under the police department. So the police department houses the AFIS database. And like you said, it's only criminal up to now. I know in other countries or jurisdictions, they have more of a civilian or a national database that they can run searches, particularly for missing persons. In the future, we hope to get to that point. Whether or not the AFIS is still under police or because it's a forensic tool, it's moved to scenes of crime. That's well, more likely will be a budgetary decision, because to run a database like that, you need the additional resources, the manpower, the annual licenses and whatnot. No?
What are some of the other major developments we've seen in the recent years?
All right, well, the unit, one of our biggest supporters, bilateral support, is the United States government through the INL CARSI program. And the U.S. Embassy has been crucial in the training received in 2015 in all the well-equipped mobiles, crime scene processing trucks. Ongoing training every year, the Embassy provides additional support. However, at the department, we do have a budget that's set aside for our own materials and resources. So we equip ourselves with, last year we invested in new equipment, a drying cabinet, fuming chambers. This year we're going to invest in more, since we have our new office, our new headquarters in the Belize City area and on Bishop Street. There's a space there to grow. So we're going to invest in more drying cabinets for evidence preservation, to process evidence under international standards. That's an area where we want to go within the next 2 years, to have the Belize City office accredited to the ISO 17020 standard for crime scene units.
And I mean, that takes a level of investment.
Yes.
I think people need to know that when you're trying to get this level of accreditation with the standards. Everything has to be up to a certain level. How far are we from being able to meet the targets?
Okay. In terms of infrastructure and equipment, we're almost there. Like I said, there's a few more items of equipment. One of the biggest parts, though, is actually, once you cross that hurdle with the investment, is the discipline, the day-to-day supervision, the day-to-day adherence to standard operating procedures, to non-conformity reports, to internal audits. That aspect there, maintaining standards in procurement, in hiring, in promotion, so we can be audited and see that we say what we're doing and we do what we say as well. So you have to document everything and follow these procedures. So that's that part there, the whole quality system, a quality culture. That's the part that we're going to be focusing on in the next coming years. But the investment, we continue to get our own department budget. It's just under $4 million right now. We continue to grow that with other investments in DNA within the next couple of years in strengthening facilities for medical examiners and the laboratory. Scenes of crime will be able to continue to uplift or to push their part of the process along with the other two units of the lab. No?
You keep on making the distinction, and maybe it's important that we do that. The forensics department has different departments.
Yes.
Scenes of crime is one. The laboratory work is another. Go ahead and distinguish those for us and how they complement each other.
All right, well, it starts with the crime scene.
Yeah.
And sometimes the crime scene is at the post-mortem examination.
Okay.
So the examination needs to happen, whether it's examining the crime scene or the body or the human remains. Potential for collecting the evidence, documenting it, maintaining chain of custody. So between those two units, the medical examiners has another important medical legal role to play where they certify the cause of death and the manner of death. That's a crucial function in the justice system, also in the healthcare system for sudden deaths. A lot of people aren't aware that all the sudden deaths that happen outside of a clinician setting where a doctor is not able to determine medical history, that's a role for the forensic department.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily lead to a criminal case, but the examination needs to be done to rule out any criminal culpability. You know? And then after that, the exhibits, the technicians or the medical examiners collect exhibits and submit to a laboratory. And at the laboratory, we have 4 sections: the ballistics units, which we talked about earlier, the toxicology unit that does ethanol quantification in blood and urine, both for antemortem or living specimens as well as postmortem. We have a seized drug section. They identify controlled substances, and currently our 4 main types are cocaine, cannabis, opiates, and amphetamine type substances. And then we have the serology section, which is tasked with the identification of bodily fluids, blood, semen, saliva. And that's the section that soon will start to make strides toward investing incrementally in DNA.
Nice. Now tell us, Mr. Revero, just about the rewards that you get from this job. You've been doing it for so long. Why is it something that you're still so passionate about?
Well, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's something that that we do to serve the public, to ensure that we have closure. When we have closure to a case, that is when it feels rewarding to know that a case has been solved, that the victims have a closure. Those are one of the most rewarding points that I can see, seeing closure to any case. And we have seen many so far in both murder cases and robberies, burglaries, several cases to mention.
How would you describe the level of technology we now employ? Let's say from the beginning to 10 years ago. Where's Belize at now?
Well, where we, as Mr. Cho had previously mentioned, at first we used to dry our wet items, wet clothing out there in maybe under a garage. To say that was so many years ago. It's not something.
And why is that bad?
It's because you are cross-contaminating with the air. There are so many factors that affect the clothing.
So when you test it, it includes those outside elements from crime.
Yeah, it can. So it's not an ideal thing to do.
And I'm almost certain that when you have a very sharp and astute lawyer, he'll take you to task on
like the
how the evidence really tests and stands up.
And how you maintain certain conditions throughout the lifespan of the evidence.
So now with the technology that we have now with the drying chamber, which we have now in Belize City, Well, once that item goes in there, there's no way to cross-contaminate. And that's why Mr. Cho had mentioned a while ago that we are looking to get one more so that we will have to differentiate for victims and the actual accused, right?
And actually next year, around mid-June, through the support again of the INL Currency program, we're looking to provide Belmopan, Dangriga, and Ladyville with new offices for scenes of crime, which will include these required equipment. No?
We have a state-of-the-art fuming chamber. At first, we used to use
What's a fuming chamber?
Fuming chamber is what we use to super glue items for fingerprints.
Okay.
At first, we used to use the makeshift one, that where you just place your item in there, super glue it, and at the end of the day, when you're finished, it can actually hurt your eyes. But now with this fuming chamber that we acquired a couple of years ago, last year, we are doing much better with that.
Yeah, because one of the big parts of, in addition to evidence, preventing contamination and preserving integrity of evidence is health and safety. A lot of the chemicals, the reagents that technicians use or laboratory can pose health and safety risks. So we need to use proper equipment, scientific equipment, in order for the technicians to be safe but also do effective work.
Yeah. So definitely not cheap equipment either.
No.
So let's talk about the forward movement for the scenes of crime unit specifically. There's clearly, as you said, an intent for investment in more equipment, in decentralizing the service itself. How are we doing at human resource?
We are still short of human resources. There are vacancies right now that, well, since the dawn of the pandemic, hiring has been a bit slower, but we do need to fill certain vacancies. There's a need for additional staff countrywide. There's particularly in some areas where there's only 1 or 2 staff and they work on shift, and there's a need to rotate. And on weekends, a lot of things, a lot of times the public would tend to not realize that there has to be a technician on duty at all hours of the day, night time, on weekends. In Belize City, it's only 24-hour office.
Yeah.
In the districts, the technicians are on call after hours. Right? And believe it or not, and going back to the needs, believe it or not, technicians all these years have been, and we've been applying for them to be paid an on-call allowance as a method of ensuring that the service is there in a reliable fashion. Without that on-call allowance, we have to try to stagger our staff, and then it leads to shortages in response time. So definitely a need is there for improving the working conditions, but also increasing the staff complement, strengthening the staff complement, so we have adequate response to crime scenes, and so that our staff are not burnt out, and so that we avoid issues with staff feeling overwhelmed with the workload, particularly in certain areas. No?
When you look at the occurrence of certain incidents, if I may, either it's like a homicide, a burglary, road traffic accident, what have you, it would seem apparent that there's a higher number of recorded incidents over the weekend, for instance. So it stands to reason then that you guys would be busier between Friday and Saturday, well, between Friday and Sunday, to say that. More so in Belize City, because like in our line of work in the media, we're covering all of those incidents that happen between Friday and Monday, right? And so you guys are out there to cover all of those incidents that are also being reported.
And Mr. Arvol is in charge of the Belize City office. He's one of the supervisors there. One of his main things that probably is responsible for the gray hairs that you see is the shift, the roster.
Yeah.
Particularly when you have staff, and in COVID times, it has been even more difficult where you have staff in quarantine, right?
Wow,
To make sure that the shift is still there, that service is still provided, that justice can still be pursued later on, even though there are shortages in manpower. So we're really pushing to try to fill some of those holes, especially in the offices that are high volume offices like the Belize City office. No?
So what can the public do to make it? You said that the challenge for scenes of crime, you have a good relationship with the police, they cordon off the area, and you said it's usually the public that oftentimes contaminates a scene. What would you say to the public now that they're watching about why it's important to give the scenes of crime unit its space and allow them to do their job effectively?
First of all, I would like to say to the public that it is very good for us, for you guys, to ensure that when you see something happen out there, to stay away. cross-contamination is very bad for evidence that we want to collect. If people contaminate the evidence that is out there, then it is hard for forensic science to play its role when doing its analysis on evidence. So I would appreciate that if we can stay away from the scenes.
And that includes things like rushing to hug your loved one.
Exactly.
After they're deceased. I mean, if you need to save their life, you save their life, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we have cases like home invasions. A lot of time the public will have their family come before the police arrive at the crime scene. And then what is there to collect? Limited evidence is there to collect. As I mentioned earlier, there are trace evidence, there are fingerprints that can be collected from different areas of the incident where it occurred. And that's why we would always tell the public, try to prevent doing anything. If something happened at a crime scene, stay away. Let the first responder secure the scene, after which the technician will arrive. Sometimes we will delay in arriving at the crime scene because, as we mentioned a while ago, manpower.
Yeah.
Sometimes we only have one person working in, a shift, and there's a crime scene in such an area and then another crime scene. And that is where we always teach, and the police we always liaise with the police to secure the area, because we will not leave the scene until it is fully completed. So it might delay the process of the other scene. So that is very essential for us.
And it's a multi-agency approach, as Mr. Revel said. We do trainings. Actually, 2 weeks ago, there was a training for police constables countrywide, a refresher training. Next week, a month from now, will be first responders refresher training. So our unit collaborates very closely with police to ensure that we keep up that multi-agency approach. The prosecution office as well, from time to time we do trainings in courtroom, witness testimony, mock trials and things like that. No? But one of the other things that we'd like to tell the public as well, because we understand there's sometimes lack of trust or public confidence in departments such as ours. And we want the public to understand that there are efforts to improve that public confidence, that level of trust. Part of that is what we do internally, like with training, with the competency testing, with this push to accreditation. But a part of that is also the outreach, like what we're doing today. Let the public be aware of what's going on, acknowledging the tireless work that our officers, the technicians, the laboratory, the doctors, they do all the time. And so the public can start to appreciate that it's more like what you said than what you just see on TV. When you look at those images of crime scenes, there are a lot more things. There's the victim side, there's the tragedy, the human loss of life sometimes, but there's also all the work that goes on behind the scenes for years. You know, sometimes the judicial system takes years for some of these cases to actually reach the court. And these technicians have those cases lined up, filed away, stored. Years later, when court comes up, they refresh their memory, they go and they still deliver outstanding job on the stand as expert witnesses. No?
All right. Well, we thank you for coming in and just telling us a bit about the work that you do. We know you can't tell us too much, right? So grateful to hear more about the plans for the future of this particular unit and the overall forensic department as well. Best of luck and happy anniversary.
Before we close, I would like to give thanks to our technicians who are working tirelessly, effortlessly, countrywide. They are all doing a very outstanding work out there, and we must learn to appreciate them. People are out there and they believe that the work that we do is just photograph. It's more than photograph at a crime scene. It's what we try to do out there for the public to ensure we have closure for everyone. So I must give thanks to everyone in our unit. Especially after today, we have 17 years. I'm happy to be one of those persons that is 17 years in the unit.
Thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you for having us.
All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
Lately, many things have changed. We changed, of course, but we're still the same. During this pandemic, information is our main partner. The most widely known antimicrobials are called antibiotics, but they are useless to fight diseases such as COVID-19 because it is caused by a virus, whereas antibiotics cure diseases of bacterial origin. Therefore, if you feel sick, do not self-medicate. Consult a health professional qualified to write a prescription and take antibiotics only when prescribed.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform. Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go. You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code. Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. The future is here with eCash. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
And we're back. And we want to say thank you for tuning in today. We do apologize that we had a last minute change in our schedule, but we were able to cover the current adjustments that will allow churches to open. Unvaccinated person, there is no need to prove your vaccination status to enter church. That's just a part of the new SIs that roll out today.
Yeah. And of course, we just want to once again commend the Scenes of Crimes unit for the work that they've been doing in terms of investigating crime scenes and presenting the court with the evidence that they've gathered. The unit is 17 years old today, or this week, I'd like to say, and keep up the good job.
Yeah, and I do appreciate what they shared in looking at the how much they have advanced over the past 17 years, and of course how much they need to work along with other agencies and need the support of the public as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but that's all the time we have for today. As we said early at the top of the show, the World Leaders Summit is ongoing in Glasgow, Scotland. Prime Minister John Briceño is there representing Belize along with his team. And our reporter, Duane Moody, is there and will be giving us reports over the course of the next 2 weeks. You can begin looking out for those tonight. But remember, if you'd like to contact us here at Open Your Eyes, Send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BC and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.